Hello. This presentation is available as a self-paced option. Please follow the instructions on the screen to conduct the training at your own pace. Hello, and welcome to the 2023-2024 school year. Today, we are presenting our Site Elpac Testing Coordinator training for the Elpac, which evaluates students identified for assessment by the Home Language Survey, and depending on results, administer the annual progress for our EL population by assessing the summative and summative alternate Elpac. We appreciate your time and attention to this important assessment. This training covers all modules of the Elpac administration. It is only required to view once. However, it is available to you throughout the year to review whenever needed. We will be covering a variety of topics today that apply to all modules of the Elpac assessment. If you are accessing this self-paced module, the topic links are highlighted so that you may access these at any time and in any order. Some of the topics are the Site Elpac Coordinator role, materials, the STAIR process, Moodle, alternate assessments, TOMS, and other resources that you might find beneficial. San Diego Unified and the field of education is famous for its acronyms. Here is a reminder of just some of the ones you might find in this presentation. Elpac is the English Language Proficiency Assessment for California. DFA stands for Directions for Administration, typically only utilized on the actual test day. PFAs are Preparing for Administration. These are utilized when you're planning the coordination of your school site's testing. TOMS is the Test Operation Management System. The SETC are what you are, Site Elpac Testing Coordinators. The ELC would be the English Language Coordinator. HLS is a home language survey. TDS is the Test Delivery System, also known as Test Administrator Interface, which is linked from the Elpac homepage. TIDES would be your Test Delivery System Planning and Managing Tool. It is a set of reports for grades 3 through 12 in completion. DEI is the Data Entry Interface, and THSS are the Teacher Hand Scoring System. Often utilized throughout the year, many of these acronyms will become very familiar. The Elpac has four modules that have been developed: the initial, the alternate initial, the summative, and the alternate summative. For any alternate modules, the current locked IEP must indicate an alternate assessment is appropriate for the student. This will apply to all state-mandated assessments, including Smarter Balanced, CASP, CAW as well. Testing windows are vital for every SETC to know. The windows for the 2023-2024 Elpac are the initial and the initial alternate open August 21st through June 6th. That is our traditional student attendance calendar. The summative and the alternate summative are February 1st until March 29th, which is the day before spring break commences. Keep in mind, all alternate assessments follow the same windows as the standard assessments. State windows, which run from April 8th through May 31st, are really for any stragglers, chronic absenteeism, missing SSIDs, or other unforeseen complications. New this year is the reclassification process, which will be managed within the Elevation software system. Typically, these duties are performed by an EL coordinator. Once the window opens on February 1st, last year's Elpac results will no longer be valid to utilize for reclassification. Please be sure to obtain your reclassification rosters from Elevation during the fall so that you may successfully reclassify any eligible students. For our IEP students, the alt reclassification process timeline remains the same. All alternate reclassifications must occur before February 1st, 2024. So you may be asking what your role is as the site Elpac testing coordinator. You are the interface and expert on all things Elpac. You coordinate the initial, summative, and the alternate Elpacs to ensure that 100% of all EL students are assessed. For our larger sites, that can mean coordinating the site training for your test examiners. For others, that may mean you do everything all by yourself. In either case, test security and properly trained staff are hugely important. Here is a listing of some of the tasks that is expected of a site Elpac testing coordinator. This isn't to intimidate you, but to demonstrate the differences between a site Elpac testing coordinator and the role of a site EL coordinator. Some sites interchange these roles. However, there are some basic differences. The site Elpac coordinator is responsible for the successful 100% completion of assessments at their site. There are tasks to complete before, during, and after testing that need to be fulfilled. While most sites have one designee for both roles, it is important to know there are distinct differences. The SETCs coordinate the administration of the Elpac on a site. They may assess students, conduct online training, and of their test examiners. Tasks are completed on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Our EL coordinators help and support the coordination of the English language education program on a site, including compliance items such as EL placement, teacher resources, reclassifications, EL and RFEP follow-up, and interventions. EL coordinators will be transitioning to the new Elevation platform this year. Whereas the EL coordinator's primary role and goal is to ensure the site meets English learner compliance components sent by federal and state entities to ensure our EL students are properly placed and educated and the parents are kept informed of the progress of their children. If anyone has contacted me in the past few years, they probably get tired of hearing me ask, do you have the PFAs or DFAs in front of you? The reason for this is because the PFA and DFAs have literally everything you need. It includes all the before, during, and after testing, as well as planning and testing times. I will be inserting this slide periodically to demonstrate pages the sections are within the DFA or PFA. It is important to note that only the DFA is a highly secure document. Please do not carry these with you to Starbucks, leave in your car, or leave out on your desk. If you are not actively using the DFA, it must be locked in a secure cabinet or desk. The PFA is not a secure document and can be referenced throughout the year. Finding resources to complete the variety of tasks the Elpac required is easy. Elpac.org is your one-stop shop. Use the Test Administration drop-down to locate primary topics, such as Test Administration Overview, Initial, Summative, Initial Alternate, Summative Alternate, Manuals and Instructions, Videos and Reference Guides, Template Letters, Test Security, Score Reporting, and all of these resources have manuals that you can reference as well. This site is so comprehensive, we have linked it directly from our Elpac staff portal as well. That is to ensure that you always have the most current information available. While Elpac.org is an excellent source of information, please do not call the 1-800 email or chat lines in the gray support box. This is for district level support only. The English Language Proficiency Assessment for California is California's assessment system that is used to identify and/or determine the English language proficiency of students whose primary English language is not English. While being a federal and state mandate, the Elpac is aligned with the 2012 California English Language Development Standards and assesses 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The Elpac is used to identify students as being either English learner or fluent in English. It is administered only once during a student's time in the California public school system, based on the results of the initial and the home language survey. The locally scored initial Elpac will be the official score, whereas the summative Elpac monitors the annual progress towards English language proficiency. There are only a few minor changes to the Elpac this year. The DFA and PFAs have been created for all Elpac modules by grade span. PFAs are not secure and can be used in preparation and planning at your site. The DFAs are secure and must be locked up when not actively in use. Remote testing instructions have been incorporated into the DFAs for use in extreme circumstances. For the initial Elpac, the THSS will have a revised look and feel, but remain similar to previous years. New this year is a test item notes area where educators can comment on a response before assigning the assessment to another scorer for action. Student score sheets can be found on the back page of each DFA, making it easier to copy and use. A reminder that there are 2 documents that assist the site Elpac testing coordinators on how to plan and execute testing for their sites. The PFA, which is preparing for administration, is not secure, and the DFA used on test day is a direction for administration, which is a secure document. As we refine our best practices, a change for this year will be that no TK2 site will be delivered initial Elpac materials until the principal, the SETC, and the custodial staff have signed their affidavits. I have sent an email Google link to all custodial identified staff to make this process a little more seamless and easy. It is important to understand the access process for the Elpac test administration. Once you know a test examiner has been trained, the SETC adds the user into the TOMS system. The test examiner will receive an activation email. They need to activate the TOMS account and sign another security affidavit. After approximately 30 minutes, they will be able to access the test administration interface for all online tests. Often, test examiners go directly to the interface without activating their TOMS account. This module, doing it this way, will only show the interim assessments, but not the initial or summative assessments. Your test examiner will need to go to the TOMS and ask for a request one now to reactivate the TOMS account and sign the security affidavit. In every training, you hear the words test security. This is very important duty for all staff involved with Elpac administration. Knowing and understanding that every aspect of the Elpac is considered secure. If there is any type of security breach, the number 1 question will be, did you read and understand the security affidavit prior to signing? This becomes important as security breaches must be reported via the STAIR process and can have serious consequences such as removal of scores for a student. This can impact students and sites for the API dashboard. So, even though you have to sign this agreement multiple times, you will sign it in Moodle during training and in TOMS, it is the expectation that you read and understand the document you are signing. These forms are kept electronically. However, there are forms for staff that do not test but may have access, such as clerical, custodial, paraeducators. This form is the TOMS for non-TOMS users, available on elpac.org's security page. Please be sure that staff understand in the event of a security violation. Sites will be required to report why the breach occurred and what you will be doing to ensure integrity going forward. Here are the links to the details of the Elpac Test Security Affidavit. Non-TOMS users link and instructions. The Assessment Services Office has emailed all elementary site custodial staff as of August 1st, 2023, requesting they complete a Google Form affidavit. You are welcome to reach out and see if your staff completed these forms. Highlights of the affidavit are that staff will not divulge the contents of the test materials. They will only permit eligible pupils who are testing and staff who have signed a security affidavit to be in the room during test administration. They will collect and account for all test materials following each test session. They will not review any questions, passages, or other items with pupils or any other person. They will actively supervise pupils throughout the testing session, and they will not copy, share, or photograph the test booklet or questions. Signs can be downloaded from the Assessment Services website. No unauthorized electronic devices, including the proctors, cell phones, smartphones, smartwatches, and other unauthorized electronic devices are not allowed to be used during testing. All cell phones should be turned off and put away. Sometimes it is easy to forget about our environment. Be aware of the instructional materials in the testing rooms. Someone once gave me a great idea. Go to a thrift store and get old flat sheets. Tack them up to cover your materials without having to actually remove them. So this side could fit into a lot of places, but as it is entirely about data, I thought it was most appropriate as an opener to the technology piece. San Diego Unified has two PowerSchool student databases, one for all student enrollment, and the other is a module for special programs that houses the 504 and IEPs for our students. Both of these systems require San Diego Unified to manually update into what's called CalPADS, California Longitude Pupil Achievement Data System. So when we enroll a new student into PowerSchool, it takes approximately 24 hours for that data to reflect in CalPADS. CalPADS is what feeds the data into our TOMS system. That requires another 24 hours. This will be the first opportunity you have to obtain an eligibility report. As you can see from the graphic, there are three components of the TOMS system. TOMS, which is the dashboard that you see where you can add students and update student data. The test delivery system, which allows a student to actually take the assessment. And what they call the ORS TIDES or SIRS, which provides data that the CDE reports out to the public. Why is this important? Because if a student has taken an Elpac assessment anywhere in the state of California, the back and forth exchange of data will return the student's EL status, which will end up in PowerSchool. However, please note that data exchange can take up to 72 hours to complete. If a student does not have a student identifier, this process can take even longer. This is the reason we encourage sites to only use the eligibility rosters from TOMS and not the PowerSchool rosters. That way we are sure if a student has been tested, you cannot duplicate the assessment. The initial and summative Elpac are completely online administrations. There is no access to the testing platform without a valid SSID number issued to a student. Again, this can take several days to obtain from the system in CalPADS. Do not wait to enter our student enrollment records to ensure timely assessment. Another friendly reminder that when the test examiners at your site follow the PFA, The opportunities to have security or administration issues greatly diminish. Within each DFA, which is Directions for Administration, you will find the instructions to access the test sessions. The only piece we are requesting you to ignore is how to access the secure browser. San Diego Unified has loaded secure browser applications to every student device in San Diego Unified. It is highly recommended that prior to testing, both the test examiner and the student properly shut down their devices and allow any IT pushed updates to occur overnight. The internet browsers and secure browsers will be the most current and up-to-date versions if you follow this advice. Secure browsers do not allow students to surf the web during testing. This makes the apps very valuable to the integrity of the Elpac. Be sure to use a San Diego Unified staff and student device that has all the proper San Diego Unified issued updates. Computers that have not been used for long periods of time should be checked to see if the browsers are current. You can contact the IT help desk for assistance in this matter. SDUSD has an application preloaded on all student devices. The key here is to not have the student log in. The icon will be on the bottom left side of the screen. And according to our IT department, this year's secure browser update will no longer work on our oldest Chromebooks, the 11E, the N22, and N23s. Technically, those models were end of life in June 2022, but they just barely met the minimum OS version for last year, so they were able to test. Unfortunately, there are still a fair amount of them out in our district. Overall, the district has enough current devices, but getting students to make the swap has been a challenge. Best practice, please have your test examiner check out a newer updated student device in the event your student has an older model. Follow the instructions on this and the next slide for a successful experience. As the visual indicates, you can find the secure browser under the Apps button on the bottom left side of the menu bar. Once selected, you may have multiple options. Look for the words Secure Browser. At the next window, if you are a first-time user, select and use the drop-down to select CA for the state of California and OK. When students are logging in, sometimes there are problems that occur at this screen. There are a few common issues that occur every year. Using the roster in TOMS, you may find that there are multiple first names. Another reason to use the TOMS eligibility report is to locate those students that may have two first names. If a name has a unique character or two names, you must enter it exactly as it is in TOMS. Keep in mind that the number 0 and the letter O look very similar to our second language students. Be sure they are using the correct number or letter. What are security breaches and testing irregularities? These are issues that arise that need to be reported to the state. Cheating, missing testing materials, not following DFAs, and a whole host of other items can occur. Reports are filed by test domain. So if a child was caught cheating on a reading domain, only the reading domain would require a STARE report. This page will demonstrate details that a Site Elpac testing coordinator will need to do to file an incident or STARE report. The domains involved, you need to know if they are listening, speaking, reading, or writing. What is the grade or grade span involved? How many students or staff are involved? What was the description of what happened in detail? And any potential actions that have been taken by the administrative staff to correct the incident and protocols put in place to ensure future incidences can be prevented. These are times when stairs are required, a minimal character count on the submission page. Look closely at the wording. It will say a minimum of 200 characters are required. This is pretty straightforward. Stairs reporting is completed online, and coordinators can only identify one domain per submittal. Coordinators must file a separate incident report using a stair and appeal process for each domain. Incidences cannot be combined. Draft stair reports must be deleted on a regular basis. Oftentimes we don't realize that we've stopped the process because you are interrupted at a school site so often. All pending stair cases for the initial Elpac must be resolved for the student to be eligible to be assessed with the summative. If and when you need to complete a stair report, there is an entire guidebook that is available online and can walk you through the process. Although this applies to only sites with UTK through 2nd grade, I do get calls every fall. Only our TK through 2 sites have any materials. The alternate assessment is completely online for all grade levels. And I understand that this might be repetitive, but this is a change from prior year practice, and I feel it might be worth repeating. Our TK2 materials will not be delivered to sites where custodial staff have not completed the Google Form affidavit for non-TOMS users, meaning that sites will need to make arrangements to come and pick up materials or have and ensure the custodial staff have completed the Google Form. I have emailed all custodial assigned staff at elementary and alternate K-8 sites to complete the form. For summative writing books, returning material through school mail is not secure, which means it's a security breach. All TK2 completed booklets must be returned for scoring back to the testing company in person to Annex 3. Please do not send staff that are not prepared to correct any issues or errors with the submission of booklets. Keep in mind, test security is especially important for the TK through 2 sites, as you have printed testing materials. Materials must not be brought to your home, left in your car, or out on a desk or copier. Material must be kept in a locked, secure area before and after testing. Please create a system for checking out and in materials to your test examiners. Count your booklets and materials when handing them in and out. If you need additional booklets for testing, simply email me what you need. Remember to tell me the grade number, the grade, the number of books you need, and the form number on your booklets. Excess orders will be questioned. Typically, we don't issue more than 5 of any assessment. We're not trying to be offensive. We just have to account for all material issued to every site. So, training. One of the largest complaints we hear each year is how intensive and lengthy training can be. Please know that we do hear you, and we are doing everything we can to reduce duplication of information and keep presentations short and concise to what you need in your role. As an example, this year, I have reduced the essentials training to 1 training instead of 2, and I have taken out a lot of repetitive material for our returning coordinators. So as the SETC, you might have multiple roles, including a test examiner and EL coordinator. And we know that at Assessment Services, we are doing everything we can to offer you trainings in a variety of ways. There are 2 main trainings. As a SETC, there is the SETC Essentials, and you are doing that currently. There is the 2023-2024 Moodle Access for Elpac, which is in Safe Schools. It's a 10-minute PowerPoint, and it's only if you do not know how to access Moodle. Then there is the Moodle Test Examiner Training and Calibration. This can be 20 minutes up to several hours, depending on your testing role. There is a training in Safe Schools on how to access Moodle and training platform for Moodle. It's also included in this presentation for you. Test examiners are unable to assess any students without basic training in Moodle. You will use the Moodle to ensure test examiners are accurately scoring students on the speaking and writing domains. It also covers remote testing and the reading and listening components for grades 3 through 12. SETCs are responsible to ensure any user that is provided access to TOMS to assess students have completed the required annual trainings at their site. There are 2 basic videos, Reading and Listening Administration and the Speaking and Writing for Initial Only domains that require certification. You can find these at the moodle.casp-elpac.org. Use this to create a new account only if you have never used Moodle in the past. Otherwise, Moodle accounts stay the same year to year. If you lost your password or need Moodle access help, please email moodlesupport@scoe.com. Unfortunately, I am unable to help with Moodle issues. Once you are logged into Moodle, your training options will display. Currently, we are training using the 2023-2024 Initial Elpac Training module. The alternate is a little different. If a resource specialist, Mod Severe teacher, or paraeducator of a student trained during spring of 2023 and administered the alternate summative Elpac to a student, they do not have to train to administer the initial Elpac. Currently, alternate training will occur only once a year in November annually for the alternate components of the Elpac. Here is a visual of the page you will see in Moodle. Be sure to access the Test Examiner modules. Please note these access keys. Please write them down. They are case sensitive and 00s are zeros, not numerical. And alpha. Do not access any training module that states LEA certification. The keys do not work for that module. Elementary test examiners may choose from the following grades and grade spans, depending on which grades you are assessing: kindergarten, first, second, kindergarten through second, 3 through 5, and K through 5. Even though the vast majority of initials are at elementary sites are kindergarten, we do recommend elementary test examiners calibrate entirely K through 5, the one module K through 5, because newly enrolled students could appear at any grade level on your initial Elpac report anytime throughout the year. Remember, scoring must take place as the student is being assessed on both speaking and writing for the initial, which means assessors must pass calibration on both speaking and writing for the initial. For the summative, it remains to be speaking only. Calibration certification requirements for secondary sites. Secondary test examiners may choose from following grade spans depending on which grades you will be assessing. You have options of 6 through 8, 9 through 12, and 6 through 12. As an example of a TK through 12 site, you would complete certification for K through 5 and then 6 through 12 to become fully compliant for your site. Passing the speaking and writing, if you're doing initial, calibration quizzes in your grade span is required to receive certificates of completion and be qualified to administer the Elpac. The calibration quizzes have been dramatically improved and now include test questions and anchors and rubrics for each test question. What do you do with the certificates of completion? If you are an hourly assessor and you wish to be certified in SAMS to perform as a test examiner, you must email your certificates of completion to Claudia Williams at sandy.net. So that's kwilliams5@sandy.net with the subject line, initial Elpac certificate, and your employee ID number. Do not send certificates to Claudia if you are a standard regular district employee who will not utilize the SAMS system to obtain an Elpac testing job. Please be sure to keep a copy of that certification for yourself. This section is slightly repetitive, I apologize, but feedback each year indicates a need to prevent this information in several different ways. All staff in the test examiner role completes the overview of test administration video, and if you have grades 3 through 12 plus, you need to complete the overview grade 3 through 12 listening, reading, and writing group administration videos. For speaking and or writing with the initial, examiners also complete calibration for speaking and writing for the initial and select the option that best fits the students you will be assessing. Here is another reminder that assessment services request that test examiners fully certified in full grade spans. At elementary sites, we are requesting you complete the K through 5 certification. 6 through 8 middle school, 9 through 12 for our high schools. If you are a K-8, you would do K through 5 and 6 through 8. If you are a K-12, you would do K through 5 and then 6 through 12 is one module. If you have any questions, always please feel free to reach out. The first part of training in Moodle requires that a security affidavit be signed. This is separate from the TOMS account, and you will be asked to read and sign when you access TOMS. So you will be doing an affidavit a multiple of times, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 times. Elpac resources are available for the Elpac. Summative resources will be posted in January. Currently, the key to the resources is the number that you see on your screen, again, all caps, T3YEAMZCV and the ampersand sign. Case managers must have a certificate of completion from the Moodle Alternate Summative in spring 2023 and have assessed a student last year, or they must complete the alternate training in Moodle to administer the initial for this year. There is a single alternate Elpac test examiner certification course that covers both initial and summative alternate assessments. The certification course allows test examiners to administer both assessments until the new certification course annual launch in early November. When the new course is released annually on November 1st, all alternate test examiners must recertify prior to any administration of either the initial or summative alternate Elpac. This assessment is administered by the case manager, typically not the SETC, as it is required that a person that knows and understands the student's mode of communication be the assessor for the student. This can be a paraeducator, or if the class has a regular sub-teacher that knows that student. There is no opt-out or waiver for the Elpac. All students must be assessed. For highly unique situations, such as a student who might be in a coma, document without violating any HIPAA laws. Please do not add any diagnosis. For the alternate initial Elpac, you have all year to assess a student, so you may need to wait for the student to recover or become available for assessment. However, students identified to take an initial Elpac can be given the standard initial Elpac versus the alternate Elpac, should they be available. Please keep good notes and be sure that you include absence reports for backup in the event that you are not assessing students in a timely manner. When you update a student status in TOMS, it does take the system time to update the test settings. If you are changing a student from a standard Elpac to an alternate Elpac, you will need to wait approximately 24 hours before you can assess that student in the correct testing platform. Staff that did not train in the alternate Elpac last spring do need to complete Moodle training. It takes approximately 3 hours to complete. Resources specific to the alternate Elpac are not part of Moodle, but can be accessed at the elpac.org website. Assessment accessibility is a comprehensive training completely separate from this training. All school sites should incorporate this into the fall staff in-services. All teachers with the student roster should receive this training. The training will be available on the Assessment Services website, staff portal, and Safe Schools. You will be notified via email communication. With the increasing technology, all students have a better means to demonstrate what they know and what they can do. The SETC will need to be sure that accommodations are entered into TOMS so the student has all the necessary supports. Assessment Services on a monthly basis will update test settings for every student to have pause and replay options as a universal support, as deemed necessary for the computer administration of the Elpac. If we miss a student, you may be needing to add that accommodation. Accommodations for a student may only be entered into TOMS if said accommodation is on a current locked IEP. For example, speech to text must be on the special factors page of the current locked IEP designated for the alternate Elpac or the standard Elpac in order for it to be entered into TOMS. It is recommended that a copy of the special factors page of the IEP be kept at the site in the SETC files in the event of a compliance audit. If a child starts an assessment and the settings on the IEP change, a stare or reset appeal would need to be filed to correct this situation. This reference page is also known as the bento box or the accommodations grid. This is a wonderful visual to see what tools and supports are available for our students. For example, any item in blue is available to all students without an IEP, any student at all, whereas any item in the yellow or gold require IEP documentation. In the event you would have a student that would require skipping one domain, it must also be outlined in the student's IEP or 504 plan. As an example, a deaf student may have an exemption for the listening component of the Elpac. These exemptions are typically related to the student's disability. As you begin to assess students, there are more details that must be addressed. Utilizing the PFA, Preparation for Administration, before testing, then the DFA, direction for administration, as your test examiners assess each student, will ensure a smooth testing process. The 30-day timeline is extremely important as this is a compliance issue. The clock starts ticking on day 1 of enrollment, not attendance. And the timeline is calendar days, not school days, which means Saturdays and Sundays are counted. It is vital for your enrollment clerk and your case managers to identify any potential alternate initial Elpac students, so you do not assess them incorrectly. Again, if a student is not identified or does not have a current locked IEP, you must assess them with the initial Elpac within that 30 calendar day timeline. The 30 calendar days includes the required parent notifications. As a reminder, the Elpac is not timed. The estimated times do not include reading of the directions, and actual testing times may be shorter if the student exits the test for failing to respond correctly. It is unusual for sites to administer the initial Elpac in any group setting. However, it is allowed for listening, reading, and writing for grades 3 through 12 in groups of 20, or writing only for grade 2 in a group of 10. So, you are ready to assess your students. Not so fast. You must be calibrated to score the speaking and writing for the initial. And you can only complete these tasks in Moodle. There is a very brief 10-minute PowerPoint on how to access Moodle in Safe Schools if you have never accessed Moodle prior. And this slide tells test examiners who scores student responses in each domain and how those scores are recorded for scoring. For speaking and writing, the test examiner scores all student responses. Listening and reading are scored by the computer. This is for the initial. The graphic also informs the test examiner how scores are entered. For example, your UTK students, both speaking and writing for the initial scores, are entered into the DEI interface, the data entry interface. For grade 3 through 12, speaking scores are entered into the DEI. However, writing scores are entered into the Teacher Hand Scoring System, or THSS. This graphic demonstrates again when to use the DEI and when to use the THSS. The same information as previously discussed, however, just presented slightly differently for visual purposes. We strongly encourage using the inside back cover of the UTK test booklets to record scores. This can be torn out and kept in the event a parent inquiry or problem should arise. For our older grades, there are score sheets that can be printed out for multiple students. Be sure to complete the demographics and keep the score sheets for the year in the event of any issues. So, you've completely trained in Moodle, assessed and scored a student. Now what? You need to enter your speaking scores and, when applicable, writing scores for the initial in the DEI or THSS. Knowing where to find these links is always a challenge. The elpac.org menu on the left-hand side, third option, is where you locate the DEI and THSS button. All speaking is entered into the DEI for all grade levels. Writing for the UTK initial only is in DEI. Writing for the initial for grades 3 through 12 can be found in the THSS system. Please note there might be a couple-hour delay between the grades 3 through 12 being posted and available for scoring in THSS. So we've been discussing the various platforms where data is managed. The front end of TOMS will display loads of timely data. The landing page contains the number of users, the students, the completion rates, and other details. It is the most frequented tool that the SETC should utilize on a regular basis. We're going to briefly discuss some highlights of the TOMS system that a SETC will access. First, annually, every July, TOMS users are removed from the system. The Assessment Service Department adds the site Elpac testing coordinator after August. This year it'll be August 15th when the principals designate their site testing coordinator for the year. Anyone who attends the operation training presentation by Assessment Services will do that live during the training. Any site that does not designate a testing coordinator will automatically default to the site administrator for that year. Once your test examiners have completed the Moodle component and presented the certificate to you, the user can be activated in TOMS as a test examiner. Site coordinators are responsible for adding test examiners at your site after validating their training information. So the first time you access TOMS for the school year after July 4th, you will need to use the Request One Now, not the Forgot Your Password link. At the start of the year, it can take time to receive codes and emails. Other times, the district firewall can prevent the codes from being received. So there is a job aid for how to log in should you need it. To add users, open TOMS and select Users from the blue menu bar, then Add to add a new user. Please be very careful when entering emails and double check. In addition, it is best practice to only use sandy.net emails to ensure FERPA security and privacy of our students' information. Again, only add test examiners that are appropriately trained in Moodle. So who can see what is in TOMS? The highest level of access is the SETC. They have full site access, whereas test examiners can enter DEI and THSS and audio files. There is also a setting for a data entry THS for sites that have clerical staff that assist with this task. The best practice, all principals have been provided automatic access to TOMS. However, only one Site Elpac Test Examiner Coordinator will be allowed access to TOMS. As previously mentioned, the DFAs are a necessary component of testing. The DFAs are secure and are stored in TOMS under the Resource tab. Another highly valuable menu item is the Reports tab. This is a very comprehensive listing of reports for your site, but most important are the eligibility rosters. If a student is not on the eligibility roster and you believe they should be assessed, you will need to research why and take the necessary actions to correct if needed. Sometimes it's just a matter of being patient while the data is exchanged. Again, students are brought into TOMS once they are uploaded from PowerSchool into CalPads. That process can take 24 to 48 hours. The function of running the SSRs is a task for the SETC. Once all the domain scores are completed, that means your DEI and your THSS for the initial. The official score report will be available in TOMS under the Reports tab. This report is titled Elpac Student Score Report PDFs. In addition, it is vital the parent notification is sent to the parent with their score report. Every student assessed with the initial or alternate initial Elpac requires a parent notification letter to be sent home. Letter templates and specifics on how to complete the task is located in the compliance notebook. Actually, it's the compliance manual set out by the multi-educational department, also known as MED. Here is another reminder of the timeline regarding assessments of identified students. The 30 days are calendar days, not school days. Students with severe cognitive disabilities that should have an IEP need to be discussed with the case manager to ensure the student is assessed with the appropriate assessment. So, what do you do with all the test booklets after you complete testing? So the TK2 book disposition. Initial books are kept at the site until the end of the year. Our summative books are returned in person to assessment services as completed or before the March 29, 2023 deadline. Instructions on how to return material will be provided to the SETC in February and is included as an annotated instruction sheet within the materials that are delivered for the summative. Used test booklets may be securely shredded or turned in at the end of the year with the summative materials for secure destruction. The completed score sheet should be retained in the event of any issues with scoring. The majority of initial Elpac testing will take place in September and early October. However, students enroll all year long, and the initial window is open all year, July through June. Sites should keep unused testing materials until directed differently from assessment services. The summative Elpac booklets are returned and pre-ID labels will be issued again this year. Further information pertaining specifically to the summative Elpac booklets will be included again in January. However, only students enrolled in TOMS before January 12th will have the first pre-ID labels. Late enrollments must be fully written in and bubbled. Again, you must use a TOMS roster to properly identify the students' names. PowerSchool nicknames do not work for the test booklets. They cause problems for the testing company to score them. And the books will be due this year. Summative booklets will be due March 29, 2024, just before spring break. In addition to the PFAs and DFAs being such incredible resources for almost anything related to the assessment, Elpac.org site is your next best stop to get job aids, manuals, and information on everything Elpac related. While Elpac.org is an excellent source of information, again, that gray box area is for district level support only. Please contact me or the Assessment Services Office for assistance on anything. To receive access to the TOMS platform, please follow the link and complete your certification. This part is important. You will not receive TOMS access unless I have the ability to see that you have completed it. I appreciate your time. Again, I'd like to let you know that your first stop for assistance regarding Elpac is Assessment Services. We're happy to assist you in obtaining that 100% completion for your site. To reach Assessment Services Office is 619-725-7065. My direct line is 619-725-7059. And again, my Zoom room will be open as much as I am able to be there. Typically Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4 p.m. Our fax number, should you need it, is 619-725-7070. Again, my Zoom room is open anytime I am able to be there and have it open. If I am not there, please call our office for assistance. Thank you so much for your time and attention to this training.